Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I have a little bit of a special one for you. It's going to be a double exclusive coverage with the brand new Planeswalker that is just entering the vault, Basri Ket, along with a brand new exclusive bundle that's entering the vault, Ghired Conclave Exile. So let's go ahead and just get straight into it. Basri Ket is a brand new Planeswalker. He is the first of his kind. He is Basri 1 and is the mono-white walker in the M21 expansion. Now, that means that as we've had the blue, red, green, and black ones already, Basri marks the final Planeswalker for M21. Basri has three abilities: Trial of the True, Remembrance of Solidarity, and Oketra's Everlasting Army. Basri's mana gains are the same sort of mana gains as all of the other mono walkers from M21, with the +4/+4/3 split and then -1/-1. Basri's mana gains are in the Bant colors, so white, green, and blue. And his abilities are revolving around tokens and reinforcements. So the first ability, Trial of the True, at level 60 is going to have target creature you control get +4/+4 and Bravery. That is a permanent buff. Then if that creature's base power is 3 or less, it gains Flying, Lifelink, and Prevent damage until end of turn. The second ability, Remembrance of Solidarity, has if you control 2 or less creatures, create X soldier tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures and non-token creature reinforcements you control. Otherwise, populate X times, and you gain X life. And that populate is going to be the same as populate X times, where X is the number of non-token creatures and non-token creature reinforcements you control, and you gain X life. The third ability, Oketra's Everlasting Army, has you create an Oketra's Everlasting Army token. Then that creature, or then target creature you control, gains Bravery and Vigilance. That Bravery and Vigilance is permanent. The Oketra's Everlasting Army token at level 60 is going to be an emblem with 3 shields. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or less creatures, create 3 soldier tokens. Otherwise, populate 3 times. And when your first creature attacks, your other creatures get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is equal to the number of your first creature's reinforcements. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what populate does, it makes it so that you reinforce your tokens. So whenever populate triggers, you reinforce the first creature token you control with the greatest base power. Ignore the first creature token you control part of it. It's just reinforce the creature token with the greatest base power you control. That's the best way to think of that ability. Now, I'm sorry, I did actually have the whole leveling process of Basri and all of his abilities from rank 1 to 4 documented, but my phone died, just flat out died. I had actually recorded this whole video and I had to re-record everything, but I lost all of my screenshots along with the footage. So I don't have those anymore, sadly. Now, Basri is a little bit of an odd walker, because with the way that Remembrance of Solidarity and Oketra's Everlasting Army work, they both want you to have a whole bunch of creature reinforcements out. However, the best way in Puzzle Quest to get a bunch of reinforcements out is to play tokens. Yet these abilities aren't actually affected by having tokens, so they ignore token reinforcements. Basri's abilities are actually so strong that if they did include tokens, I would hazard to guess that Basri might be an S-tier Planeswalker, because his abilities really are that strong. However, you don't get those boosts based on token reinforcements, and so that definitely weakens Basri quite a bit. Now, you're able to combat that. You're able to get past that if you have access to Linden, the Steadfast Queen, because Linden is a creature with leader, and she is a leader human knight. This is important because there are a whole bunch of cards that are going to make human tokens, and then the tokens that Basri creates are actually human soldier tokens. So if I tap on the soldier, they're human soldier. That means that Linden is going to go ahead and scoop them all up. So all the tokens that you make are actually going to go into Linden, reinforcing her, enabling her to actually make Solidarity and Oketra's Everlasting Army go absolutely nuts. Now, there are definitely ways to build around Basri without Linden, so it's not like he absolutely needs to have Linden to be successful. However, Linden is definitely the linchpin for Basri, and if you do have Linden, you probably will never make a deck around Basri that doesn't have Linden unless you're just experimenting with other cards. Now, the other build that I tried, and I'm going to go ahead and show off gameplay with both builds, was a Chromanticore build. Because with Chromanticore, because you're going to be populating so much, and take my word for it, you populate a lot with this Planeswalker. Like, you populate a lot. It's really cool to be able to populate really cool tokens. And Chromanticore is kind of the coolest token that you can make in Basri, in that these tokens are 5/5, First Strike, Flying, Lifelink, Vigilance, and Trample, which means that if you're starting to populate these tokens 3 times a turn, because Basri's third ability is going to populate 3 times a turn if you've got all your creatures out, then you're getting 3 Chromanticores every single turn, which is pretty strong. Alternatively, you could go ahead and have things like Ghostblade Eidolon go ahead and populate multiple times, but it kind of makes an extra use out of all of these auras that either buff a creature or create tokens. Now, my idea for if you don't have Linden, what you can do to get a creature with a whole bunch of reinforcements is you run Isperia as your only creature, because Isperia has whenever this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's Planeswalker, fetch your first creature with flying from your library and give it half of its mana. So Isperia is guaranteed to fetch Isperia in this deck. And then if you've got Ghostblade Eidolon on the Isperia, then that Isperia is actually guaranteed to fetch 2 Isperias every time it hits your opponent, right? Because whenever it attacks, it's actually hitting twice. So you're able to actually reinforce it quite a number of times, and then you can go ahead and pop Basri's second ability, Remembrance of Solidarity, to go ahead and make a whole bunch of population tokens, right? Or populate is going to create a bunch of tokens. Now, the one downside to populate, and I've done quite a lot of testing with this, if you take a look at Ghired, who is the other exclusive that's coming out along with Basri, I actually have a lot more experience on this card than I typically would have. Now, some of that is indeed due to my having to shoot this video twice, but some of it is also due to I did a heck of a lot of testing with this, guys. I did a lot of testing with populate. So the one downside to populate is that when a creature gets populated, it's reinforced. So if you actually select the populate tooltip, it says reinforce the first creature. It doesn't actually make another token, which means that if you're using something like Warstorm Surge, which comes in the Ghired Conclave Exile bundle, Warstorm Surge isn't going to trigger extra damage against your opponent because, well, the populate isn't actually putting a new token into play. Now, Ghired is a natural pairing for Basri. Ghired is phenomenal with Basri. For that matter, all of my testing with Ghired, I wound up coming back to just playing Ghired with Basri because Basri is going to populate a lot, and these Rhino tokens that you make are actually pretty strong. They're these, well, the game isn't letting me select the Rhino token, but they're 4/4 tokens with trample. And so I was finding that with Ghired and Linden, I was easily able to, with my second ability, get these Rhino tokens pretty close to, if not greater than, the low hundreds in power, just because the Rhinos come out, and then with you populating 3 Rhinos a turn with the third ability, and then with Linden getting a whole bunch of soldier tokens and reinforcements with all of the different humans that are coming out, be it from that third ability while you're still waiting to get all your creatures down, or from Castle Ardenvale triggers that are going to create white human tokens, or even just from Elspeth Sun's Champion, which is going to create human soldier tokens. And mind you, there are a great many ways to make human tokens right now. So you don't have to specifically use the ones that I am running in this video. You're going to be able to reinforce Linden a bunch of times, which means that you're going to be able to use your second ability, Remembrance of Solidarity, and pump an easy 40 to 80 power per 12 loyalty into those Rhino tokens. And against a person, that's just a flat game over. Now, I'm not actually allowed to test any of these against people. I have to test all of them in story mode or PvE and in non-coalition events. So all of my testing was really exclusively to story, but I mean, it was killing the story mode guys pretty darn quickly. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into some gameplay for you guys so you can see Basri in action, so you guys can see Ghired and Song of the World Soul, which also comes in the Ghired bundle in action. And you're going to get to see both of the decks that I've shown so far. So you're going to get to see what Basri looks like if you have Linden, and then a little bit of what Basri can look like if you don't have Linden. So let's get to that gameplay. So first up, we have Basri here with Linden. And in my starting hand, I've got a Whirlwind of Thought and I've got 2 Elspeths. Whirlwind of Thought is very important in this deck because it gives us card draw, and white is definitely lacking in card draw. So that was actually one of the most immediate things that I noticed in playing Basri, is that I needed to find creative ways of drawing cards, just because as a color right now, mono white is very deficient in card draw. So I get an early Whirlwind of Thought down. That also means I'm going to be able to get Loyalty, which is great for me being able to showcase the different abilities for you guys. Drawing into a Castle Ardenvale is pretty nice too, because that means that I can go ahead and start converting gems to white, which means I can go ahead and make more things happen. Now, I am prioritizing the Elspeth here just so that I can start getting human tokens down, so that when I pull a Linden, as I very luckily do right there, I can go ahead and start reinforcing her as quickly as possible. Now, I'm a bad Vanguard player for that. I sometimes forget to use my activations. I did not here, but I believe on the next turn I actually forget to use Elspeth's ability to make human tokens, which shame on me. But I do get Linden out here. I'm already at my 3rd ability, so I'm going to use the 3rd ability, and I'm going to target Linden, which is my only creature, to give her Vigilance and Bravery. Now, she already has Vigilance, so it just gives her Bravery. And here you get to see the first taste of Ghired and the Rhino token. Now, the thing that I want you guys to focus on for this piece is just how fast that Rhino token bulks up, because it bulks up really, really quickly. It's kind of scary. So there, you saw that the Rhino token just populated 3 times. So it just went from 4 power to 16 because I had Basri's 3rd ability down. Now remember, Ghired is also going to populate when he attacks. So now not only is Linden going to be, and you'll see that I forgot to use Elspeth here. So not only is Linden going to be buffing everyone up, and not only is Ghired going to be populating, but Basri's token is also going to populate. So there's Ghired populating the Rhino, and then the Rhinos are already up to 32 power, which is kind of nice in just that you really don't need to have a whole bunch of cards at your disposal to make Ghired strong. And if you wind up choosing to get Ghired along with Basri, the 2 of them pair actually really well, especially for a duet of bundles that are coming out at the same time. It's kind of surprising. I usually don't see the bundles that work this well together come out at the same time. So the Rhino's already up to 48 power, and that means that this next turn is probably going to be the end of the game, just because I have my 2nd ability available here, which means that when I use Basri's 2nd ability, I've already got 12 reinforcements on Linden, and so this is going to put immediately 14 reinforcements on that Rhino, and boom, look at that. That Rhino's already up to 104 power, and when Linden attacks, Linden is going to be boosting both Ghired and the Rhino by plus 12. So that's it. That's all she wrote. This Eldrazi is very dead. Let's move on to the next game. In this second game, you're going to see that I'm running that Isperia deck. I've got a Gate in my hand, which is really nice just because I want to go ahead and start getting some mana conversion going. Unfortunately, the Eldrazi side does wind up going and getting a whole bunch of matches, so they get 2 of their little 5/6 Eldrazi's out, and so I've got to find a way to start getting Isperia and Chromanticore down pretty quickly. Now, fortunately for me, I do draw into the Chromanticore pretty early, and then also fortunately for me, I made a 5 match there, which means that I can go ahead and keep matching here. And so I'm going to go ahead and take the green match because remember, green has the same general power level as white does for Basri. And then I've got a really nice red into white match on the right side. Now, it does make sense for me to use my 3rd ability, but I'm going to go ahead and hold off for 1 turn. Unfortunately, I do give up a 5 match there on the bottom, but I can come back from that. That's okay. And then you'll see that they destroy my support, and the Eldrazi side has a pretty big battlefield out. But honestly, that really doesn't make too big of a difference, because as you're going to see here, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to be able to get Chromanticore down. I'm going to use my third ability. I'm going to be giving the Isperia Vigilance and Bravery. But it's really not about the Vigilance and Bravery. It's about the fact that I can go ahead and now cast Chromanticore. And then I'm going to be populating... sorry, I'm not going to be populating this turn because I have the 2 creatures. So I'm going to be getting the soldier tokens. And the next turn I can populate. So one of the nice things about the way that Basri's ability works is that if you don't have the creatures, at the very least, you're going to get more creatures, because that's just sort of how the ability works in making the soldier tokens. So it makes it easier for you to get to the stage where you're going to be populating. In case you're interested, there are other good ways of populating, or other good targets for population. You can go ahead and populate angel tokens. I know that we're going to be getting some sweet new angel tokens in the upcoming Zendikar set. And then we've also got things like Parhelion that exist in Standard right now. We've got Divine Visitation. So there's a whole bunch of things that are going to be able to make angel tokens. Now here you're going to see the Chromanticore is populating, so that's why it's at 20 power with the 3 reinforcements. And once Chromanticore starts populating 3 times a turn, the game is basically over unless your opponent has a way of killing the thing, because it's going to block everything your opponent throws at you. It's going to kill everything your opponent throws at you, and it's going to give you a ton of life. And then the cool thing about Isperia here is that Isperia is going to be getting me more Isperias, which means that if I'm able to get enough loyalty, then I can go ahead and use my second ability and start populating even more. So the Chromanticore is already getting populated 3 more times. It's up to 37 power. And this Eldrazi dude is going down fast. So I've got 2 more Isperias in hand. We're going to go ahead. We're going to cast them. The Ruinous Ultimatums really aren't going to do anything for me at this stage. I'm just checking to see how close I am to my second ability. If I make a loyalty match, then I can use my second ability next turn, and then I could populate a few times, which would be kind of cool. But I kind of want to risk it for the biscuit just because I've got the gates down. And in having the gates down, I'm kind of hoping that I can get a few more Isperias down. And then after getting a few more Isperias down, I could just make a huge Chromanticore stack. But as you can see, because Chromanticore is going to populate 3 more times this turn, that's not going to happen. We're going to kill him too fast. Basri, once you get the abilities down, once you actually set up your playfield, Basri just absolutely destroys. Like, you actually just completely shred your opponent. So as long as you have some kind of strong token, it's over. So our Chromanticore is already up to 68 power, and that's all she wrote. This one's a done deal. So now for my final take on Basri and the Ghired bundle. Basri is a very solid Planeswalker. As I mentioned earlier, Basri could have maybe been an S-tier Planeswalker if his abilities were not contingent upon there being tokens, on non-token creatures. But with how Basri is designed, I would say that Basri is going to fill somewhere between the B and C tier. Basri has incredibly powerful abilities. They are very, very strong. Remembrance of Solidarity does dirty things, as you saw with that Rhino. Oketra's Everlasting Army is going to pump up your field really quickly. It's very scary. Being able to give your creature bravery is really nice in conjunction with how it works, because when your first creature attacks, your other creatures get the +X/+X. So you can choose to go ahead and just give the creature that you know is going to be reinforced the most bravery, which puts it into the first slot. So with that, I generally like how Basri was designed. I do indeed wish that Basri was not impacted by that whole non-token thing, just because I love messing with super absurdly powerful, crazy things. But Basri is definitely a good Planeswalker. As for Ghired, Ghired is a really cool bundle. I'm liking Ghired a lot more than I thought I would. So Ghired is kind of like a poor man's Quartzwood Crasher, except that you can use Ghired in a white deck. So Ghired makes a token whenever he attacks, or he makes a token when he enters the battlefield, and he populates when he attacks, which is akin to just making another token, which means that Rhino's not going to get quite as strong as a Quartzwood token is, but it's still nonetheless going to be really strong. And it's also only 15 mana. And let's face it, not everyone in the game has Quartzwood Crasher. So Ghired is like an absolute top play for newer players because it has just so much power for a very reasonable amount of mana. Being able to make a token every turn is kind of like a better version of Thopter Spy Network, which for newer players is an absolute beast of a card. So Ghired on his own is very strong. For people in Platinum that have more complete collections, if you've already got Quartzwood Crasher, I would imagine that you're probably going to use Quartzwood Crasher over Ghired in most situations, but that's not to say that there aren't other cards in this bundle that you might want to get your hands on. We've also got Song of the World Soul. Song of the World Soul is definitely a really cool card. You're able to populate a whole bunch of times. It is quite decent. You'll see that I have quite a bit of experience in it. I do like the card. The real card that stands out for people that are in Platinum is the Warstorm Surge. I imagine that that's going to be the one that you guys are like, ooh, yeah, that's the card that I want from this bundle. And I'm actually making a separate video on that. So I know that I haven't covered it in this video, but I will be covering Warstorm Surge in a second video. So Warstorm Surge has, when a token creature you control enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to your opponent's Planeswalker. This effect can trigger up to 4 times per turn. So that is not based on the base power, it's just what is the power of the creature. Now you'll see that I don't have a whole lot of experience in this because it really only took like 2 or 3 matches for me to decide how strong this card was. So it's definitely a strong card. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this one, and I'll see you in the next one.